Hi, friends. Welcome to day four. And on today, we'll be focusing on some advanced SQL aggregation and filtering using the having clause. And this is a very interesting concept you're about to learn. So we're going to be looking at two questions, question one and question two. Okay. The first use case here, let's quickly go over it. Finance is launching a premium loyalty program. They need customers whose total purchases exceed 900,000, prioritize for white glove service and retention investment. Okay, action. So that's your task. Generate a rank list of high value accounts for loyalty targeting. Now, we have here the expected output as usual. Now, guys, we're going to have to go back to our template, okay? So we talk about using tables, filters, and attribute, and then aggregated values. So let's ask ourselves, based on this use case, what tables should we be focusing on, okay? What table should we be focusing on? Now, we're talking about purchases, which is going to be related to orders, right? So in this case, we'll be focusing on the order table, and we've used that before in our previous session. That's going to be a sales order header in the sales schema. Okay, now we identify the tables. The attribute, we already have the attribute here, customer ID. Total sales is what we need to generate, okay? It's a derived column. Now, any filters we need to keep in mind. Now, the filters we have to keep in mind is that the total purchases need to exceed 900,000. So that's where we're going to have to deal with these filters. And I think that's pretty much it. So with that, understanding the use case, let's go back to our lab and then we can quickly see how we can solve this problem. All right. So let's first of all look for sales here. All right, so let's minimize all of this and then we can look for sales schema. Beautiful. And then we'll see the sales order header. Okay, that's what we're going to be using. So we're going to say select star. Always start with this so you can at least see the data in your table. Okay, all right, so let's see the data we have right here. All right, beautiful. Now what we do need, we know this table is at the level of the order, right? So what we do need is to then reference our customer ID. All right, ID, and then also our sales order ID. Okay, now let's run that. Now, okay, before we do that, actually, before we run this, let me quickly tell you a little bit about this data right here. Now, for the total sales, the column we'll be using right here is total due. So total due is an addition of subtotal, tax amount, and freight. So when you add all that together, you have the total due. And for total sale, we're going to be using this value as our total sales. Okay, so now let's go back to what, now that we understand the data. So what we're gonna do now is that we're just gonna run this and then we're gonna add total due to it. Total due. All right, and let's run that. So those are the three columns we are interested in. Okay, now we already know how to aggregate. So what we're going to do is that based on using customer ID, we're going to aggregate the total due. Let's quickly do that. So we will just copy, actually we don't need this guy any longer, just use that to demonstrate our data, and then we're just going to put in the sum here, sum total due, and then we're gonna call these total sales. Okay, guys, just follow me closely. Okay, all right, so now we have yeah, so let's make sure we indent correctly. All right, make sure the formatting is great. Okay, guys, let's make sure we have enough space. All right, so now we need to group by. We're just gonna do group by. At this point, I'm gonna just use the shortcut here, group by, and then group by one. Okay, and then we're just gonna run that. Okay, beautiful, beautiful. Now, now that we have these, we're gonna order by the total sales. So we see from the IS, right? So from the IS sales, okay, customers with the IS sales. So we say order by, right? And then we do total sales. All right. Okay. So once we have this, beautiful. So that tells us that customer ID with 29818 has the highest sales so far. Okay. Now, what we also learned in that question is that we also don't want any sales that we only want sales that is higher than 900,000. So you can see from 887 we don't want those because it's lower than 900,000. How do we do that? Can we use filter? Okay, there is no way we can use filter here. Why? Because we can use the where clause. Why? Because there is no way for us to reference this except if we can persist or keep this table, okay, and then query this particular table, right, which is it's beyond the scope of this particular video. So how do we do this, right? So one way to do it is that you then have the having clause. Okay, so when you put in the having, you can then say this sum of total due now and say greater than 900,000. Okay, so we have 5 zeros here. Beautiful, beautiful. Then you can run that. Now, so one question that might come to your mind is, okay, I'm a bit confused. What's the difference between the where and then the having clause, or at what point should I use it? So let me quickly explain that before I wrap up this video. Having is a clause used to filter the result of a group by query based on generated conditions. Okay, now it's different from the where clause in this sense. So where filters rows before grouping. So before we aggregate the data, we can use where clause. In other words, when we still have those data in our table, we can filter using the where clause. As long as we have aggregated the value, we no longer can use where clause for those aggregated values. Okay, so at that point we then have to use having. So one way to simplify it is that if you need to filter before an aggregation, use where clause. If you need to filter after an aggregation, use having. That simplifies it, and that's how you will be able to know when and how to apply it. Another thing I want you to take note is the order at which this code have been these particular commands follow each other. You can see select comes before from group by, and then having comes after group by, and after, and then order by comes after having. Guys, you need to take note of this. Okay, this is the structure. And then where do you think where will come from? At some point we'll still have where. At that point where can then come right here. So you can see select from where, group by, having, and order by. Okay, this is very important. Okay, if this is all you are very comfortable to use all of these various functions and you know how to use it accurately, you are in for a very wonderful start. Okay, so take note of that. Watch the video again, make sure you understand all of these various command and steps and order, and trust me, you'll be fine, and you appreciate the fact that you are able to use them in your various projects. All right, at this point we're gonna end this video here, and then next time we're gonna also talk more on these aggregated value. I want to say thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, share, and like, and I will see you in the next session.